This past weekend was one of the craziest weekends we've seen in recent memory. There were upsets and a lot of movement inside the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings. Although we still have a month left of the season, I think we're in store for the craziest finish to a college football season during the playoff era. After what went down this weekend, the top 4 is more up in the air than ever before. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. I'll be posting college football videos every day during the rest of the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss another video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. On Friday, I posted a video where I talked about the 15 teams that still have a shot of reaching the college football playoff. Well, after this weekend, that number took a massive hit. The number isn't 15 anymore, and there are various teams that now have a long shot of reaching the college football playoff. A lot of teams are still alive, but for a lot of other teams, their road now is extremely difficult. And like I mentioned, I don't know what the top 4 is going to look like at all, and I think there are numerous variations of what the potential top 4 can actually look like. As of right now, I think there's only one team that is pretty much guaranteed to make the playoff, with the other 3 spots completely up for grabs. And that team who pretty much has locked it up is Georgia. They took care of number 1 Tennessee at home, pretty much dominating from start to finish as they won 27-13. They made one of the best offenses in all of college football look like one of the worst. This is only the second time all season we've seen Georgia play a ranked opponent, but both times they've done it, they've just dominated. Back in week 1, they took care of Oregon, winning by 46, and in this game, they took care of Tennessee by 14, but it honestly could have been a 21-point victory. So although the rest of their schedule isn't that convincing, the fact that Georgia has knocked off 2 top 10 teams in dominant fashion, I think they're the clear-cut number 1 team in the nation, and even if they lose in the SEC title game, I think they're still going to reach the playoff. So there's the team who I think is an absolute guarantee to make it, assuming they beat Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Georgia Tech. But let's turn to Tennessee now, where things get really interesting for them. I talked about this in my video from the other day, but the loser of this game would take a massive hit because they likely now won't be playing in the SEC title game. Well, Tennessee now won't get a chance to play in that game, meaning they only have 3 games remaining. So if the Vols win out, which they certainly should against Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt, they're going to finish the season 11-1, but they're not going to get a chance to play in their conference title game. Now, there could be a lot of chaos that happens that allows Tennessee to still crack the playoff, but not getting a chance to play in the SEC title game is all but certainly going to hurt them. But when I get to some of these other teams and the potential scenarios, you'll see that Tennessee might still be alive in this thing. Ohio State stayed undefeated, but they struggled with Northwestern, which might hurt them in this weekend's rankings. I don't think they're going to fall out of the top 4 completely, but I wouldn't be shocked if they drop 1 or 2 spots. I mean, this is a Northwestern team that came into the game 1-7. I don't care what the conditions were like, this is a team that you were favored to beat by 40 points that really you were only up by 7 in the final minutes. This game doesn't hurt Ohio State's chances at all, but like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they drop a spot or 2. Ultimately, Ohio State's season is going to come down to what happens in the final week of the year against Michigan. We'll quickly talk about Michigan, and you can make the case they deserve to be ranked above Ohio State at this point. They took care of business against Rutgers, defeating them 52-17. Now I know it's still Rutgers, but this is a Rutgers team that was 4-4 on the season and might be going bowling, so defeating them by 35 points is a more than impressive victory. Outside of their game against Maryland back in week 4, Michigan has beaten every team they've played this year by at least 13 points. They've been dominating everyone they've been playing, whereas Ohio State, they struggled this week against Northwestern, and they struggled last week against Penn State. Again, it's all going to come down to whoever wins that Michigan-Ohio State game in a couple of weeks, but as of right now, I definitely think Michigan should be ranked above Ohio State. So both of those teams are still alive in the Big Ten hunt, but based on how things turn out, maybe whoever loses that game will still have a shot, even though they don't reach the Big Ten title game. Again, a lot is going to have to happen, but Michigan and Ohio State have both shown that they're worthy of being top 4 teams this season. This is when things are going to get really interesting now, because Clemson got absolutely embarrassed by Notre Dame. At one point, the Tigers were trailing 28-0 in this game. They didn't score their first points until the 10-minute mark in the fourth quarter. I know the scoreboard says they lost by only 21 points, but this was a much bigger gap than 3 scores. I talked about Clemson from my video the other day, saying that I thought they needed to win out in order to reach the college football playoff, because now I think their chances take a significant hit. I get that they have numerous top 25 victories so far this season, but the eye test just hasn't been there for Clemson this year. I mean, when looking at their schedule, do they really have an impressive victory this season? I personally don't think so. Overall, I just think the ACC is down as a conference, and again, those wins against teams like Wake Forest, NC State, and Syracuse just aren't that impressive, and I don't think the committee is going to get on board with them. Now, Clemson can still win out, and they're going to face North Carolina in the ACC title game, and there's a chance that could be a really impressive victory for the Tigers. But based on the other teams they're going to be in the hunt, such as Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, TCU, I don't think Clemson is going to have the advantage even if they win the ACC title game. So assuming they win out and they win their conference, Clemson is still going to be in the hunt, but by losing to Notre Dame in the way they did, I think that really hurts their chances, and they're going to be on the bubble for one of those final spots. TCU remained undefeated as they defeated Texas Tech by 10 points. The Horned Frogs are now 9-0 on the season, and they should be ranked inside the top 4 in the latest college football playoff rankings on Tuesday. But based on how the committee disrespects them, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Horned Frogs move up only 1 spot. But TCU is in the driver's seat the rest of the season. If they're able to win their final 3 games and win the Big 12 title game, there should be zero reason that they're left out. They already have a number of impressive victories this season, and they still have to play a pretty good Texas team, a pretty decent Baylor team, and an okay Iowa State team. Who they play in the Big 12 title game is still up for grabs, but that's going to be yet another impressive victory that they can add to their resume. So if TCU wins out, they should be in, but if they were to lose a game, I think that would pretty much wipe out their chances of reaching the playoff. If they're getting disrespected now by being ranked 7th as being undefeated and looking like a solid team, what's going to happen if they lose a game? Well, they're probably going to fall outside of the top 10, and I think their chances are going to be completely wiped. Now, here's a very interesting scenario that I kind of talked about in my video from Friday, but it actually happened this weekend. First of all, Alabama, they're completely eliminated by losing this game, and they have no shot of reaching the college football playoff. But LSU is in a very, very interesting situation right now. They pulled off the crazy victory by knocking off Alabama, and all of a sudden, I think the Tigers have a legitimate case of reaching the playoff. I don't know how high they're going to climb in the upcoming rankings, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them at 7 or at 6. I get it, they have 2 losses, and a 2-loss team has never reached the college football playoff before, but based on how they could finish the season, it seems nearly impossible to keep them out if they finish this off. They recently dominated number 11 Ole Miss and beat them by 25 points. Then this past weekend, they knocked off number 6 Alabama. Well, their schedule isn't that difficult to close out the season as they play Arkansas, UAB, and Texas A&M. So, assuming LSU is able to win out, they'll be in the SEC title game, and they're going to have a matchup with likely undefeated Georgia. So, if LSU is able to knock off Georgia, then I think you can make the case that they have a strong enough resume to be in the playoff even with 2 losses. I get it, they lost to Florida State in week 1 by only 1 point, but the result of that game was a coin flip, and LSU honestly should have won that game. So if you wipe out that game and they finish the season going undefeated, LSU would have won 12 of their final 13 games that would have included victories over top 12 teams in Ole Miss, Alabama, and a really impressive victory over Georgia, potentially handing them their first loss of the season. If LSU is able to win out and run the table and knock off Georgia, I do think LSU would be deserving of a playoff spot even with 2 losses. Because if you pull off these kind of victories and knock off the team that everyone thinks is the best team in the country, I think you deserve a shot of being one of the final 4. But again, this just goes to show how crazy things can potentially get. Oh, and I haven't even talked about the Pac-12 teams yet. Oregon handled Colorado with ease as they defeated them by 39 points. USC kind of struggled at the end against Cal, but they still pulled off the victory. And UCLA went on the road and handled Arizona State, defeating them 50-36. So those 3 Pac-12 teams all won, and they're all still 8-1 on the season. Looking at Oregon's schedule, they're going to play Washington next week, who's likely going to be ranked after their win against Oregon State. Then they're going to play Utah, who's likely going to move up a few spots in the college football playoff rankings and might be ranked outside of the top 10 when they face them in a couple of weeks. Then they play Oregon State, who did lose this past weekend, but there's still a chance they could be ranked inside the top 25 when Oregon plays them. So if Oregon wins those 3 games and then plays either a 1-loss USC or UCLA team in the Pac-12 title game, it seems extremely difficult to keep the Ducks out of the top 4. Looking at the Trojans and Bruins, their route is a little more difficult than Oregon's, as USC only plays 1 more ranked opponent and UCLA only plays 1 more ranked opponent. But those 2 teams will play each other, and whoever picks up the victory will earn a massive win to add to their resume. Then they're going to go on to face Oregon in the Pac-12 title game, and if they're able to take down the Ducks, that's yet another top 10 victory that looks really good for their resume. So maybe there's a lot of chaos in front of them where UCLA or USC still has a shot of reaching it. But if I were to guess, I think the Pac-12's best shot of sending a team to the playoff is Oregon. But when looking at all the potential scenarios, this has a chance to be the most chaotic playoff top 4 that we've ever seen in this era. Tennessee could be 11-1, but they don't even go to their conference title game. Ohio State might be undefeated and a Big Ten conference winner. Michigan, they might be 11-1, with their lone loss being a very close loss to Ohio State. Clemson might be 12-1 and the ACC conference champion. LSU could be 10-2, but they could be the SEC conference champion. Then you have Oregon, who might be 12-1 and the Pac-12's champion. Or what about TCU, who could be undefeated or only have 1 loss and be the Big 12's champion? As of right now, there are a number of scenarios that could give us various versions of a top 4. Now, I'm sure a lot of this is going to play itself out over the coming weeks, and the top 4 might end up being just really easy. If LSU loses in the SEC title game, they're out. If either Oregon, USC, or UCLA lose a game the rest of the way, they're out. If Clemson loses another game, they're out. If Tennessee loses another game, they're out. So as you can see, there are still a lot of teams that could fall out of the playoff discussion, but as of right now, I think there are a solid 10 teams that really still have a strong chance of reaching the college football playoff. I don't know what's going to happen over the final month of the season, but I think we're in store for the craziest finish of the last decade. So what are your biggest takeaways from this crazy weekend of college football? Which teams do you think got completely eliminated from the playoff discussion, and which teams do you think are still alive in the hunt? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you love college football, this is definitely the place for you. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be posting videos every day throughout the rest of the season, so make sure to subscribe if you call yourself a college football fan. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.